Hey everyone, welcome to Checkpoint Achieved, the weekly gaming podcast where we talk about video games and news going on in the industry. This is episode 5 and I'm Bryden Keks and I've got with me here today
Gage Paul
and Mike Leahy.
And we're going to start off with what we normally do, talking about the news going on in the industry. Last week, SimCity pretty much broken, very frustrating to hundreds of thousands of people. What are EA trying to do to get back?
Well, they're trying to get on everyone's good side again by giving a free game from their EA portfolio. So they haven't really got into very much depth about what games you're going to be able to choose from or the price range or anything like that. It's kind of vague.
But they're still essentially offering a free game to anybody that bought the game at release, right?
Yes. So if you bought the game at release and you've activated your account, you're going to get a free game in compensation.
This reminds me of what Nintendo did with the 3DS, that ambassador system thing, when they did the price drop, where you'd get a bunch of free little things.
It's cool they're doing that, but I see the direction there, but I think it's completely different because this is really, they're not offering a refund either. They're just saying, please don't be angry at us. Here's a free game.
Yeah, for all we know, like it could be like a little iPhone game piece of shit that they offer and stuff like that. We don't really know what kind of
SimCity on the iPod.
Yeah, exactly. We don't really know what the quality of game or if we're going to have a large selection, a small selection. Nobody really knows. They've just said we're giving you something for free.
EA portfolio's decent size, but not that big. The thing I'm interested in is I'm almost positive they're not going to let us play Dead Space 3 or Crysis 3. Those are games that just came out. They're not going to do that. But is it going to be like Mass Effect 3? I don't want that game because I already have it. But I'm trying to say, are they going to give me like these crappy games that are 5 years old that are like $9.99 now? Or are they actually going to give me something worthwhile? That's kind of the thing I'm hoping. Like, I just want something.
I wouldn't get your hopes up on something worthwhile.
I'm not really getting my hopes up. But I'm just saying, I'm hoping that they actually try and make people happy. Because people aren't going to be happy regardless. People that want their refund want their refund.
And customers do suck. So, back to video games, though.
Okay,
what's next?
So, Webush Securities research analyst Michael Patchter has predicted that games will cost $70 for the next generation.
We kind of talked about this a little bit before too, right? Where we threw around the idea of like, hey, maybe there's going to be a price increase in games. What would that be like? I think that was maybe episode 2 or something that we talked about that. I took some time to look into was inflation from 2005 to 2012. And a game that was $60 in 2005, when you, let's say, got your 360 at launch, is now considered like a $69.77. It's pretty much exactly the same as like a $10 increase. So it makes a lot of sense in that aspect, but still, it'll be interesting to see if this is actually going to be something that might happen. And Jack Tredden, the CEO from Sony Computer Entertainment America, has said that there's going to be games that are going to be 99 cents on the next PS4, and there's also going to be games $59. But he didn't really go into extending the price.
Above,
yeah.
I don't really have a problem with it if it's for a game that's worth that.
We talked about the AAA game, right?
Yeah, like there's certain games that, like Skyrim, for example, I would never have had a problem paying $70 for that game.
It's $10 more.
Well, if you think about how much you're paying, like you are paying at this point for Skyrim pennies on the hour with how much time I've put into Skyrim.
Yeah, exactly. I think I put like 200 hours into Skyrim, probably. So
I wouldn't be upset if they did that. Yeah. It's something that.
But the game's got to be worth it. If they're charging $70 for Colonial Marines, you know.
You're not going to buy that game then.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
maybe.
You might have, but you'd be pissed off.
You'd be even more pissed off.
Yeah.
I think the one thing I said to Gage before we started the podcast is that if they did this, maybe I buy 1 or 2 less games a year.
Yeah. I'm going to be utilizing their new free trial thing a lot more, right?
It's one of those things that I don't think it massively impacts me, but if there's a game that I'm on the fence about, it might just push me to the do not buy area more than...
Especially early on in the console's life cycle.
Definitely. So the next story that's kind of an interesting one, you know, kids playing Call of Duty, 10, 12, you hear them screaming on the mics. Not something that's necessarily that...
Fucking hate those kids.
It's not a great thing. I enjoy playing games online from time to time. I'm more of a single player type of guy, but I enjoy having not conversations, but just like either silence when I'm playing or teamwork. Someone that actually is putting some input in there. And I think that comes to the tactical game, especially when you're playing on a level that maybe it's an M-rated game. So this kind of ties into that because the ESRB, the North American rating system for video games, has officially announced a new campaign to encourage parental control in North America, and they're going to be putting on a new ad campaign on national television and local television to try and get parents to be more aware of what their children are buying, because I see it all the time.
It's not going to change anything. It's not.
In a lot of ways, I think that the percentage is like 1%.
I really doubt any parent that will buy their 10-year-old son Grand Theft Auto is going to change because they saw a commercial, right?
I think
those kind of people really...
It's going to be a small percentage. It will go down.
It'll go down a little bit.
There's going to be some parents in there that are very just disconnected from being a parent, and they might not even know. And then when their kid's like, I want that game, they might not even care or know. I think most parents understand that the game is rated M. They go buy it anyway, and that's just what pretty much happens. It's not having to do with, oh, I didn't know this game was M. I didn't know that you could get lap dances at, strip bars and run over civilians in the street in Grand Theft Auto. I thought it was a game where you were racing.
Well, the thing is, too, a lot of people like to blame violent video games for kids being violent. But the fact is, people have been violent long before there was even television or even radio.
The biggest school shooting in history happened in the 50s.
Yeah, there you go. So.
And I think we're not going to delve into that because that's a very...
No, I think we should because it's a bullshit thing.
That's going to be a...
We wanted a short podcast.
Maybe for another time.
Yeah, another time.
But seriously, I've killed thousands of video game AIs.
You love saying that.
I do love saying it because I'm proud of it. And I think the biggest thing I ever killed was like a porcupine. And that was hunting. It wasn't like I spontaneously went after a porcupine and just fucking killed it.
But what were you hunting for originally?
Like small things like that.
Did you feel like Lara Croft when you killed your first porcupine?
No, not really. It was kind of just... It kind of like half exploded.
All right.
There was a big chunk of it just gone.
Oh.
Well, I shot it with a rifle, right?
Okay.
And it was just...
I thought you were like knifing it or something like that.
No, like...
Skinning the animal.
If I remember correctly, I think its like front leg was gone.
Okay.
And it was dead.
How old were you?
I was 15.
Okay. That's okay.
It was on a camping trip with my dad, and he's like, let's go shoot some stuff.
I'm gonna teach you to kill.
Pretty much.
Would he play a game like Sniper Elite?
No, he doesn't play video games.
Okay, segue. 505 Games has announced a sequel to Sniper Elite series. That's the game where you take shots with your sniper rifle, and then it goes into that mode where you're watching the bullet.
Follows the bullet.
Yeah, and it goes through.
I love that kind of stuff, but I really am not interested in this game too much.
I'm not interested in this game either, but there's a sequel.
But remember in like Fallout 3 where you'd shoot a guy and then through the VATS thing and it would like follow the bullet? That stuff was sweet.
I'm having fun with that. I'm playing Fallout 3 as we speak right now.
Oh, you are right now.
So we'll get back to that when we're talking about video games a little bit later on in the show. But this game is going to be coming out in 2014 for current gen and next gen. Pretty much I can say, guys, we don't care, right?
It's not going to be a buy.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Maybe it's super cool.
Maybe if everybody starts talking about it and stuff, it could be a no-to-nowhere game. Who knows?
Could be an Aliens Colonial Marines.
Yeah, it's probably an Aliens Colonial Marines.
Well, there's been 3 in the series, so I mean, at least it's got that going for it, right?
Yeah.
Who decided that would be like, that's a moneymaker right there?
I don't know. It's
Which? The
Sniper?
Well, it's kind of a cool idea, because unlike in things like Call of Duty and stuff, I've heard that you actually have to take into account everything about the shot you're taking.
Like wind and things?
Yeah, you have to take into account wind. Like, you're not just pointing the
reticle.
The what do you call that?
Reticle.
The reticle at the guy. You have to, like, aim it according to the wind.
Yeah, and
temperature.
drop and things like that.
It's a specialist game too, right? I mean,
yeah, it is.
People like playing shooters, but people always like playing sniper games as well, and it's something that's unique. So I think that it has an interest there.
I think that's probably the biggest problem with it is it's kind of taking one part from a shooter and just making it really good, and that keeps it kind of narrow to a very narrow audience.
Yeah. So they're going into that niche aspect, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, what's going on with PlayStation 4? Not really much news going on, but something interesting about how it's actually been doing.
There's been some ad stuff. So the Sony's PS4 sizzle reel, which was their commercial on YouTube, is one of the highest watched ad videos on YouTube in February, and it has been watched 26,296,340 times in just over 8 days, which is that's a lot.
I think that just goes to show too that there's interest. Maybe not even PS4, but just next gen. Something new. People are interested in something new.
Apparently, they don't really play Xbox in Japan.
No, Xbox.
It's literally it's hard to find an Xbox.
Nintendo, Sony.
Yeah, so I think really PlayStation's core is from Japan.
The interesting fact that I'll get into a little bit in detail, because it's actually interesting to know this, is that in this generation of consoles, North America, let's just not even count the Wii, because the Wii's its own thing, right? But 360 versus...
We're not counting the Wii because it sucks.
It's in its own... We talked about the kindergarten
it's in the
paste.
Corner.
It's not...
It's eating paste in the corner.
It's not a part of the real game here. And so the 360 PS3, the Battle of North America, who won? 360, right?
Did it, though?
It did. It was the highest selling one. You look at...
Okay, it sold the most, okay.
Yeah, you look at it though...
Just most people I know have a PlayStation.
We live in a weird ecosystem here.
Yeah, we're on an island, so we're really secluded from the rest of the world.
We just get, bird mail and stuff. It's kind of weird, but we still find out about this news.
We still dress like we're in the 80s and shit.
It's kind of, it's messed up. But going back
Bryden has, a purple mohawk. You should see this.
Mike's wearing shoulder pads.
It's great.
I am.
But yeah, so in North America, 360, number one. But in Europe, it's the PS3. Except for the UK. The UK is a 360 zone. But the rest of Europe likes the PS3 more. But then you go to Japan, and Japan, they, in all these, areas, like North America, it's 360 is leading, but the PS3 is behind it, but just by a little bit. It's not not a full-on win.
Close race.
Same thing with Europe as well. For every area, like UK, it's 360 by a bit, and Europe, it's PS3 by a bit. But when it comes to Japan, it's not even close.
PlayStation.
And that's why you get so many, I know this is not our cup of tea, but there's so many JRPGs that come out for the PS3 that are just for the PS3. Because they don't even have a reason to make it for the 360. So
well, people aren't going to play it. They're meant for Japan. Right?
And it's made for that. Sometimes they port them over. That's why we get some weird ones.
And it's kind of interesting because living in North America, it's really easy to just assume that everybody else, just watches American movies out of Hollywood and stuff. But it's not true. If you go to places like Japan and stuff, they have their own movie industry, and it's actually pretty big there and stuff. It's kind of interesting.
There's different ecosystems everywhere in the world. And it just so happens that the PS3 and now the PS4 looks like it's getting a lot of attention, which is definitely an interesting thing to see. The last news story for today is something we talked a little bit about last time. This is God of War Ascension. The game's coming out this week. None of us have played, so we're not really going to get into too much detail about...
Is it out yet?
It came out this Tuesday.
Know that, but...
Yeah, no, it's all good. It came out this Tuesday. And one of the interesting stories, I think we are all on the same page for this one, but some reviewers really got up in a stink about this, was that for God of War Ascension, there's a specific trophy in the game. You're fighting the three Furies, which are the people that you're essentially based up against as the main antagonist-protagonist situation in that game. And the whole situation for that one is that you're thinking that you're beating one of the Furies up. It actually turns to be an innocent woman that you're essentially stomping her face in. And then this whole scene plays out. I won't really go into it. I've watched the video.
Woman? What are you talking about? They're fighting on the video.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's hard to explain because I've watched the context of it, but the Fury pretends to be... the Fury embodies this woman, this innocent woman, and then when she kills the person...
She leaves the body.
Yeah, and then you realize that you actually just killed an innocent woman. So...
Who cares? You're Kratos. You kill everyone. Yeah,
we're going to get to that point. But the thing is, you do that, then the brother of the Furies, blah, 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 takes you away, saves you, trophy pops for the whole, scene you did there.
Yeah.
Bros before hoes. And...
That's the name of the trophy is Bros Before Hoes.
Yeah, and this kind of fits into the whole context there. That your friend, that's a guy, helped you escape from these crazy bitches.
These chicks that you...
Yeah.
Yeah, they're crazy bitches.
So, I mean, okay, it's using a term that's not always 100% accepted in society, but still, it's a God of War game. That's what we were talking about before. People got
There's
really
actually sex mini games in God of War games. Are you aware of that?
I'm aware of that.
In every game.
Yeah.
There was ones in the PSP game.
Yeah. They're everywhere.
They're worried about that being offensive? Like, really? Come on. I mean, I don't find any of that stuff offensive, but...
You're Stone Cold Fox.
It was made for a joke. Fox. I think people are taking it a little too seriously. It's not like they
got
are using
offended by this?
Swear words. It's just like it's not a phrase that I would use, but it's like a phrase that everyone knows. They've heard it before. Yeah. It's like a joke phrase.
So I'll get to your point.
I'm pretty sure they say it in Transformers.
Yeah, I'll get to your...
That's like practically a Disney movie. It's not, but it practically is.
I'll get to your point, Mike, on who said it, but just to finish up on it, so they're changing the trophy name. No longer Bros Before Hoes, it's Bros Before Foes.
Yeah, and the first thing I thought when you told me that before we started here was, why didn't they just come up with a completely new achievement name?
Just like Beat the Fury or something, or Escape from them.
Like, yeah.
Just something that completely takes the pressure off.
Or it could just be like pwned. Or something. Like, it could literally be you win.
You take a taboo thing that people are upset about, and then you just switch a word and make it lame. That's not... it's kind of like they... I don't know.
If I was in charge, I would have been like, fuck you guys, it's funny, we didn't mean it to be offensive, peace. We're not changing it.
Sony Santa Monica, the studio that makes this game, is widely considered one of the biggest studios that actually has like a high, strong predominance of women in this, like the actual people that make the game.
Yeah.
The actual lead on the team is a woman.
So is it the people that were developing it saw it and didn't like it then?
No, so they did it. They went through it. Like, people actually wrote the trophies. It was all in, and there's a lot more stuff in this game that is just...
Yeah, everybody knows that. You rip people apart and stuff.
I don't think it's bad, but some of the stuff to me sometimes a little bit like, okay, I didn't really need to see this elephant's brain come out. I didn't need to see this...
What are you talking about? Of course you need to see that. It's God of War. That's what that game's for.
That's what I mean. That's
it's
cool.
Like, it would be like Mortal Kombat without a fatality. Okay.
I like Mortal Kombat fatalities. That's exactly. Like I'm having.
It's almost the same.
Yeah.
Almost the same.
I don't have anything wrong. Like, there's nothing wrong with them. I'm fine with them. I'm just saying, as a personal, like, I just find some of that stuff to be a little bit much when I'm playing. But you know what? People enjoy it, and it actually adds to the fact that you're playing as a god of war.
Well, you're not a god in this one. You're actually only a god in one of them.
Oh, okay.
Aren't you like a demigod?
Yeah, you are a demigod.
I've never played any of the gods. Well, like, I've played parts of them. I played God of War 3.
We should stop because we're getting into territory where we might spoil it for some people. So
we're not going to go too far. But that's the point, right? Is that it's just a little bit funny that they went to this level, just like...
I think it's weird that they even bothered to change it because it's one trophy. Of all the things does it really matter?
I actually respect it in some ways because people were upset about it, and they patched this before even the game came out. So most people that are going to play the game won't even know. And they just took response and they said their exact response to it was that some people are upset about this, not everybody, but we understand where some people are coming from. So to respect their opinions, we're going to switch this. And I agree that it isn't something that probably should have been switched, but you know what? Good for them to actually do that. Good for them to actually say, hey, we're going to take this away and just, it's not going to be a thing anymore. Maybe people will still talk about it, but again, whatever. But still...
By next week, everyone will have forgotten anyway.
Something else will happen, just like the Dead Island Riptide. Have you seen that one? The collector's edition in the UK was essentially this zombie woman that had like a UK bikini on.
So?
That was a big deal, apparently.
That was offensive? Found that offensive?
Yeah, she had no head, but it was just like this woman that had big breasts with a bikini on. It was a zombie. It was a zombie.
That's kind of gross more than offensive.
Yeah, why would you want...
And they were selling it as something that you could put on your mantle.
That's like a rotten woman. That's nasty.
Again, but that's...
Do not touch that. You will get diseases from stuff like that.
Exactly.
You don't even have to sleep with a dead woman to get a disease. Did you know that?
No, she just...
Yeah, she just gotta have the disease. She doesn't have to be dead.
Open wound?
Could you imagine
I can't
Could
tell
you
if we're talking
imagine?
about STDs or like
Yeah.
diseases from
Zombies.
dead people.
We want you to be safe at home, guys. Moving on, though, let's talk about new releases from the week that was.
So new releases for March 12th, which was this past Tuesday, are Starcraft 2, Heart of the Swarm for PC.
We're not Starcraft players.
None of us
No.
are.
I can respect that being a big, huge deal. Bigger than SimCity in some aspects. But
Yeah, it probably is. I mean, SimCity sucked.
yeah, well, in that
So-
aspect, but I mean, like, still, StarCraft is a massive thing, but I've never touched that
Yeah,
because
it's really big for like strategy players and gamers and stuff like that.
I wouldn't touch it, though, because that multiplayer is deadly.
Yeah.
People on there are so good that they will destroy you. They'll make fun of you and destroy you
Remember
at the same time.
That's pretty hardcore.
It's a huge, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
interesting.
that's a really big release then.
Yeah.
In some parts of the world.
And the thing about this is that for esports, right, people won't play it right away, but it'll become like a new thing that becomes a part of the circuit that they play in these tournaments. And then for these, there's like winning strategies that you win these games. It's kind of like, you know how there's when you play chess.
Imagine it'd be like chess.
There's like how to win with this many moves, right? The kind of the same idea that they get used to this new system and find ways to really make it potent when they play. But again, guys that play this game are usually very, very good, better than I would ever be, even if I gave a damn about this game. Still a great game, but not going to touch it.
Okay, we also have God of War Ascension for the PS3.
Which we talked about,
Yeah.
didn't we?
Are you going to play it, or, I mean,
Yeah,
like...
I'm gonna get it because I played all the other ones. So I like God of War. I think it's a really good game.
I had fun with the God of War I played, which is the PSP one.
Yeah.
And
Well, there's two of them, right?
I don't
There's
know.
another one.
I played. I bought the cheapest one before I went on like a plane trip,
Okay.
and I had fun with it. But I was like,
Chains of Olympus.
I don't really want to. I think that was the one.
Yeah.
I don't really want to like pay $60 for God of War. It's not. I can see why people would, but it's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm gonna get it on launch. I might wait until it drops.
Yeah, price drop.
Yeah.
And the thing for that, too, that I'll just say is that it hasn't gotten amazing reviews, but it seems like it's getting pretty good reviews. If it seems like it's something that we need to talk about at the end of the year for the Game of the Year, talks, Game of the Year awards, then that's something that I might pick up at that point, just to say I know what we're talking about when we're talking about that game. But until then, I'm probably just going to...
Well, one of the things you can do with, like, EB Games, usually it's trade in 2, get 1 free kind of thing. So usually if I have 2 games that are fairly new that I don't feel like I'm going to play again, trade them in. That'd probably be one that I'd trade in after.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
We also got Sniper Ghost Warrior 2 for PC, PS3, and 360.
A market for sniper games, but not going to play this one.
A market for competitive sniper games.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you mean? So it's just like...
This one's a different game. So there's these, sorry for saying the name wrong there, but Sniper Elite series is the one that we're talking about for the new one coming out, and this is the Sniper Ghost Warrior series, which is just made by a different developer. But yeah.
So they're kind of the same idea then?
Similar. I think that the Ghost Warrior's more present day, kind of like, I remember the last game, I saw stuff from it was more like in this tropical forest type of setting, and the Sniper Elite series seems to be more World War II Nazis type of setup with that one.
So we also have a PS Vita game, which is Soul Sacrifice.
And that one's interesting. I'm not going to play it. None of us are going to play because we don't have Vitas, but it could be an interesting one to see.
I would definitely be picking that up if I owned a Vita. I am a huge Dark Souls and Demon Souls fan, and that game is kind of similar.
It's in that realm.
Yeah, it's that same kind of style of JRPG. So if I had a PS Vita, I'd pick it up, but this isn't a game that I'm going to get a PS Vita for.
Yeah, I can't really think of any game that I would buy a PS Vita specifically for, just because all the games on Vita seem like they're just lesser versions of the console games, right? They're all spin-offs.
Yeah,
So-
you get some stuff like Uncharted Golden Abyss that looks interesting, but you're like, I've already played that. I don't really need to get my fill again of
They're
that.
either spin-offs or dumbed-down versions, like with Marvel vs. Capcom.
Yeah.
Or stuff you can just get on the PSN. Like Sound Shapes was a game that I was interested in. Just play it on the PSN. They didn't need to get a Vita for it.
Yeah, just if you want to make a portable system really successful, you're gonna have to come up with your own games, and they're gonna have to be good games.
Yeah.
Right?
And this one might do it for some of the Japanese audience because One thing I actually didn't mention in the news this week is that they dropped the price of the Vita, and the Vita actually outsold the 3DS for the first time ever this week, which is kind of cool news to hear that it's doing all right. But I'm interested to see how this game sells because it's a very Japanese-oriented game. It's right in their wheelhouse of an interesting kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't call it JRPG, but that type of...
They're kind of like JRPGs mixed with Western.
Yeah. It's a you have the kind of that type of style, but then it has Western elements in it to make it more modernized in a way.
What company makes it?
I actually am not sure of which company that makes it, but
are they Japanese or Western?
It's I believe it's a Japanese company that took Western ideas and put into their game.
I see.
But it's very influenced by the idea of Demon Souls and Dark Souls. I think you dabbled in that, but it's a very fine taste for some people to play. Like, you like that game. I know you picked that up and you're just kind of like...
Yeah, it was too much work.
Yeah.
It takes a while.
After playing, it was I think the problem was I bought it so soon after Skyrim.
I prefer that game to Skyrim.
Do you? Okay,
Yeah.
but I think the thing with me was because I had put so much time into Skyrim, I didn't really feel like putting so much time into another game.
That happens. You get RPG fatigue sometimes, where you play a game for 50 hours and you're like, that was awesome. Had a great time playing it. I just need to go play.
You're not ready for another.
Let me just go play some sport game or
exactly.
Something like relax. Not so stressful. Not so. Well, I guess they're not stressful.
Just not so like involved.
Yeah. Feels like work almost.
Yeah, sometimes it does. You in those games.
Because with RPGs, you get into like a rhythm where you're like, okay, I want to do this, then I want to do this, and then right.
You feel like you need to do stuff.
Yeah, you need to take a break from that and also, like, your outside life starts going to shit, too, right?
You start playing the game a little bit much, and you're like... I was actually really grateful for the fact... Now it's fixed, but I dislike the fact that this happened on the PS3, but the issues of Skyrim on the PS3, and how my game started to get pretty buggy because of how big my save file was. I put the game down because I thought they'd patch it at some point, and I never really picked it up after that. But there was there's a period there when I was playing the game too much. And I'm happy that there was a point that I kind of just latched off. And I want to go back and play the DLC in there. But I'm almost apprehensive because I'm just like, I'm completely detached from the game right now. I do not need to go back.
Yeah, you're probably not going to.
I think that because I feel like I already got my fill.
Yeah.
I'm really focusing on games that come out now too because I want to be in the know of what's going on.
I don't really have an interest in playing the DLC for that game because I put so much time into it.
So the last new release for this week is Darkstalkers Resurrection, a fighting game for the PSN and the Xbox Live Arcade.
And that one I really don't know that much about just because it's pretty much just a re-res version of an older game. Pretty popular in some fields, fighting game from the 90s though, so never really got to play it that much, and probably not going to touch that one.
No, if I wanted to play a fighting game with those characters, I'd just play Marvel vs. Capcom.
Yeah. Moving on from that, though, we're going to go into a new segment that we're going to do on the show called Game Spotlight. Something that we might not do every single week, but what it'll essentially be is that we'll focus on one game that has our interest right now, whether it's a preview for a game that's coming out in the future, or an older game that we just wanted to get all nostalgic about, or a new release like Tomb Raider last week, where we really just kind of focused our interest on that one game. Then we kind of go into what else we've been playing this week and just finish up that way as we normally do. But the one we wanted to talk a little bit about this week is a game called Remember Me, and there's not a massive amount of info on this. There's been one gameplay trailer, a couple other trailers, and a release date for June, so there's some info out there. It's from Capcom, and the one thing that really kind of stuck out to me, and the reason why I wanted to talk about this, is because it has a bit of an interesting premise, and sometimes games can be hit or misses, where sometimes games turn out to be really cool, and you'll talk at the end of the year and say, that was a game I did not expect to be a great game. This game could be that type of game, or else it could go in the other direction, just be something that we just say, well, that was just completely missable. And we'll get into a little bit of the details about this, but what are your guys' opinions? Because I just kind of showed you guys the trailers before we started this up, just to give you, an overall idea of what it's about. Is it something that looks interesting, or what are your thoughts on Remember Me?
I really like the concept. I don't know how well it's going to execute gameplay-wise. I hope it works out well. It could be a really cool game, but I don't know how it's going to work.
Have you ever heard of a game called Mind Jack?
No, I have not.
you're a lucky person then, because Mind Jack is probably one of the worst games to ever be made, and this game really reminds me of it. Not saying this game is going to fail, but this game just seems to have that same sort of atmosphere to it.
All right.
Where you think, hey, it's kind of an out of nowhere game, it could be really good, and then it's just awful.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, we don't know that much about it, but let's go into details that we do know. So this game is set in 2084, so quite a bit ahead in the future, in Neo Paris, which is just essentially New Paris. And you're playing this character called Millen, and she's a memory hunter in the game. And from what I understand, her job was to go and extract memories from people and try and just kind of change what people's perceptions of their past were.
She'd alter their memories and stuff to get whoever she's working for,
get the information that they need.
Get their information or get them to do whatever she wants them to do and stuff like that.
It has a syndicate vibe to it too, a little bit.
Didn't they say that she was a unique one because she was actually able to remix the memories?
Yeah, whereas other people could just erase them.
Yeah,
access them.
She's got a little bit of an extra, extra to her.
I think it has potential if they made it like a really good stealth game.
Yeah,
that could be an actually like really cool stealth game.
It looks
you could like make people kill themselves and stuff, and then like just be not there, right? So you could, doesn't look like from the trailer that they really are, but I think that could have been a cool direction to go with. But anyways,
it seems like it has a bit of a Batman kind of combat going on to it. The other aspect of it too that I wanted to get into a bit is that she as a character loses her own memory, and so she's wakes up and doesn't remember anything. She's trying to find out who she is. Very convenient for a storyline plot, obviously, because Millen, you don't remember how to do this, so this is how you jump, and filling in the blanks. But it's kind of interesting because you're playing as this character, and she has a blank slate. You have a blank slate too, and you learn these things at the same time. And the part that you were kind of touching on regarding the stealth aspect, I don't know how much is going to be in the game, but there is actual going into people's memories as levels and changing their memories.
Yeah, so there could be some cool puzzle games in there and stuff, right?
I'm really interested because there's supposed to be multiple different ways that you can take these situations and act them out, and you might fail in certain cases, but you can make your enemy that you're trying to get to do something do one thing or another. He might kill himself. He might do.
See, that would be a cool game if you combined stealthy outside stuff, and then when you're in the mine, you have to solve puzzles and stuff. That's a pretty cool game.
So
it's a good game idea if that's
what it is.
We don't really know enough about the game to say, but
yeah, definitely. We gotta wait and see. And this is a little bit of a shorter segment because we don't know that much about it. But I wanted to give it some notice because it could be something interesting. And depending on I do listen to reviews when games come out. But if this gets semi-positive reviews, I think it's a game I'm just gonna check out because every once in a while a story intrigues me and I'm willing to give a game a chance. This might be one of those games, but. Yeah, let's move on, though, to what we've been playing this week. It's a bit of a quieter week in actual releases, but we're still playing some pretty big games. And I'm going to start off with you, Mike, because you are playing Tomb Raider. Me and Gage have finished Tomb Raider, but Gage was still playing Tomb Raider this week as well, so there's a lot of stuff to talk about Tomb Raider. We're going to also be posting a spoiler cast, too, after this, so stay tuned for that if you want to actually hear everything about the game. But this is going to be spoiler-free. We're just going to be talking about what we think about the game and kind of moving on from what we said last week and jumping on from that point. So what's your experience so far with Tomb Raider?
I find it really intense, and I like that. I like games that if I choose to play... There's certain games you want to play at the right time of day, right? Like when I was playing Fallout 3, which I know you're playing right now, I wanted to play it at night. Just because there's really intense parts that are just funner when you're in a pitch black room, right? This is one of those games because going through tombs and stuff and it's all dark and stuff, I was playing earlier today, didn't really get the same experience doing that.
Fair enough. And
when it's light out, right?
Yeah. So I talked a little bit about my experience with the combat. I really enjoyed the combat. How you been handling the combat? Because there's a lot of ways to tackle those.
Combat's pretty good.
Are you kind of rushing in, or are you going in stealthy?
More stealth. Sometimes it just throws you into a fight.
You have to take it sometimes. Yeah. You can't really.
But usually when there is stealth, I go for the stealth.
I found that really rewarding from the game. I felt like those certain sequences, it lets you, it's very aware that you are going to come up and try and take these guys out in this type of aspect.
But it makes you be patient with it too.
Yeah, you can't
just like start picking guys off with the bow while hiding.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you gotta wait for whoever to be in a certain area and stuff like that.
That's the thing about stealth games. I really love stealth games, but I am awful at them. So I'll get like 2 guys stealthily, and then another guy will see. I'm like, guess I gotta take out the machine gun now.
Yeah. And this game does a pretty good job though of making me feel comfortable with all the weapons that I have. And
yeah, you feel like you can no gun really feels like it's weaker.
No, and it feels right too.
No gun feels like it's overpowered. They all feel balanced, so it, you can kind of go with what you want to use.
There's definitely that.
Yeah, each gun is better for how you want to play.
And there's points too that I think the game doesn't tell you to do it, but it lets you play with all of them. There's points that I felt like, yes, shotgun, this is a perfect place to use my shotgun. I'm going to use it right now. And obviously the main one that I use, I think this is kind of ubiquitous for all of our experiences, but we all like to use the bow and arrow for those kind of quieter experiences.
The bow and arrow for the stuff, but other than that, it's all pistol.
Pistol is fun. It feels right too. It feels right because it's like it's a small weapon.
Isn't that more of an iconic thing for
Lara Croft?
Yeah.
Lara Croft and Tomb Raider? Doesn't she do the double pistols a lot?
Double pistol.
Which I was like, why isn't there double pistols in this game? Don't spoil it.
I'm not saying anything.
There will be, but...
I'm not even not saying a word. Okay, but yeah. So Gage, as well, you finish up the game. We're going to talk about those details. But did your experience with the actual gameplay wither, or did you really enjoy everything throughout?
When I'm playing it, I really enjoyed it. But I'm having this weird thing where at some point during the week, probably halfway through, I popped it out of my system to play a little bit of Mass Effect. I just didn't feel like going back to it for some reason.
I had that same feeling too. There was 3 or 4 days where I stopped and just was playing other games.
But then when I did put it in my system, I had tons of fun. I was like, why didn't I do this earlier?
Exact same. Not even joking.
And it's a weird thing too, because my experience with the game was that it worked out actually pretty nice for me, because I had the day off when SimCity and Tomb Raider came out, and I just got into that mode where I was really enjoying the game. So I played through over 50% of the game in one sitting, which is something I rarely ever do for a game. But it really hooked me in, like you guys are saying. When you're playing the game and you feel like you're in the right element, it's an intense game. You want to keep going. You want to find out more. I waited till there was a point in the story where I was like, okay, I feel like the story isn't pushing me to the next event. And that's when I took my break. But when I took my break, I took a break. I didn't come back right away.
It wasn't like you were back within 3 hours or something.
And it's funny how it does it, because we're talking about in this really great vein of saying this is a great fun game to play, but it also doesn't really wind you in when you're finished playing with it at a certain point. And I don't really have anything bad to say about. There's things that I'll get into.
But I like that about the game though, because usually with games of this genre, I'll play through the game and I'll beat it in 3 days and it'll be done, and now I need a new game. Whereas this game, I feel like it's more of a, okay, I feel like playing this game. This is the time to play this game, so I'm gonna play it now. And then when you don't feel like playing anymore, you're not feeling like, oh man, I really gotta just beat that level. I gotta,
There's not that extreme urge to go back to it and that kind of regret of playing through something too quickly.
I like playing it, but I don't feel a need to beat it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. It's not like one of those games where I gotta beat this game. It's, I want to play this for the experience.
Yeah.
Right?
So my other question to you is, Lara Croft in this game, to the point that you've played, how do you feel about the whole, her essentially just being constantly beaten up? Does that feel, does that make you like the character more? What has that done to you in the story aspect? Because it's a really interesting topic to bring up about this, because I found it at points to be kind
too much.
Too much.
You thought it was too much.
And
I mean,
well, I'll let you go ahead here.
If you want to go realistically, nobody's getting up from some of the stuff she goes through, right? But it's a video game.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the whole game is based on surviving.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what she's doing. She's surviving. No matter what's being thrown at her, right? And I feel like with this game, they're really setting up for this to be the direction of the franchise now.
They're making her tough, and I kind of enjoy what they've done.
They're trying to get away from the whole, sex icon thing that she had going on before,
Definitely.
right? And trying to make her more of a strong male.
She's more realistic.
Model. Yeah, I feel like they want to sort of get girls into this game. Like, they're trying to make her more of a female role model rather than, fat dude whacking off to.
Yeah, well, I
animated girl.
I agree with you.
I was joking last time a lot about how the boobs were smaller, but
it's completely fair. I feel like they make her a very interesting character from a character standpoint, but still have a character that is attractive and still kind of is Lara Croft.
For people that liked how they were playing as a hot girl in the previous games, there's still that element.
But she's a human.
But she's a lot more humanized and just seems like, I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's the best way to put it. She's more human. You relate to her more, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that the game actually does a really good job of you're not Lara Croft in this game, but you feel for Lara Croft, and you're kind of like.
What's actually a really interesting thing is, because when I was playing the game, because it's the first Tomb Raider I've played.
Yeah.
Right. So, I'll look up if I'm starting a new series that's been around for a while. I'll look up things on that, right? So I looked up Lara Croft on Wikipedia or whatever, and it was talking about how male players react to Lara Croft, and instead of usually when you play, say, Assassin's Creed 2, I'm gonna say Assassin's Creed, you feel like you kind of pretend in your mind that you're Ezio, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this game, you look at it a lot differently. When I was playing it, and I didn't realize it until I read this, male gamers feel like they're the protector of Lara Croft, right? And I was like, wow, I actually kind of felt like that when I was playing the game.
They do that on purpose, though. Yeah. I feel like in this game, they actually go to the point that, for me, I wasn't necessarily saying, you're beating her up too much, this isn't fair. I was kind of going from the point, like you were, that she goes through so much stuff in that game that I honestly was thinking at points, like, how is she moving right now? They do a good job, though, like, at other points, so that when she does a big jump or whatever, she kind of holds her stomach. Yeah. And there's points in the game where she's
got to find medical supplies and stuff like that, right?
They reference the fact that she's injured, but I just felt like there was so much stuff going on that...
And there is. Nobody's going to go through that. Like, that's a lot of physical torture in a very short amount of time. So, no real life person would be able to go through that unless you're fucking...
robot, just something...
Or just jacked out on steroids. Just adrenaline crazy.
I think it just kind of became predictable, though. Like, she gets into trouble, she gets
hurt,
you can kind
of start to tell when the big speed up scenes are going to happen too, right?
You're walking on this bridge. What's going to happen, Mike?
Yeah, I wonder what's going to happen on this rickety bridge.
Definitely not going to collapse.
Half collapsed. And,
There was points too that was actually kind of funny. I was going over certain platforms, and I was convinced that it was going to break.
And it didn't.
And I'm like, what? And then just like, that was really weird. Why didn't it break? And then it's kind of weird how the game almost flips the switch at some point, because so much of the environment, everything going on, just really, it's best put was it's a lawsuit island pretty much. So
with this game too, people compare Tomb Raider and Uncharted a lot. I think this Tomb Raider is a lot better than Uncharted 3.
That's fair enough.
Maybe not Uncharted 2, but it kicks the shit out of Uncharted 3. For me.
No, then I totally agree with you in a lot of aspects. I think the two differences, though, between the games is that Uncharted goes for this tongue-in-cheek...
He's kind of Spider-Man.
Action-adventure, popcorn flick.
We talked about that before, too. Yeah. He's more like the Spider-Man of action games.
Like, he makes puns and things like that.
He kills thousands of people, but he's still laughing.
But he's getting humored about it.
Yeah. Where in this game, you actually have a character that's believable. Drake can be... Just let me put this point out. He can be a character that you, as a guy, you're like, this guy's cool and he's going through this stuff.
Have a beer with this guy.
Yeah, he'd be an interesting, guy to sit down and talk with. But Laura is an actual character that you can kind of go, and again, we're talking from the protection standpoint, but also a character you can be like, she's going through all this shit, and this is awesome that
She just won't give up.
she's turning too into this person that's actually able to take on these challenges, and it gives the game a lot more quality.
It's kind of interesting how they go from her being scared in a fight to her like channeling anger in a fight.
I think you got to that
really
point where
cool
she
idea.
yells that thing, right?
Yeah.
Where she's just kind of like, I'm gonna get you.
I'm coming for you,
Yeah.
bastard, she said.
I felt like that was very good.
I stopped just after that part. That was a pretty good part.
Definitely. The last point I'll touch on before we move on to other games that we've been playing this week, and this is just kind of touching on the beginning of the game again. What was your experience at the beginning of the game compared to like moving on to the later parts? Because I've kind of gotten this overall consensus when I've talked to people about the game. The first, like after the first hour or so, there's some really interesting character development, but the game really takes off in action like 3-4 hours in. But the first like hour of the game where you're really just doing those quick time sequences and stuff like that, was that like...
Well, I feel like the game's sort of like, in terms of storyline, they really do it like a movie.
Yeah.
So they start off slow, right? And then they get into the character development, and then they climax with a lot of action. That's how an action movie usually goes, right?
I applaud them for that too, because I challenge you guys, and I know it's right now, so it's hard to think of something, but most video games don't do it like that. Most video games start off with this crazy sequence to make sure that people
are hooked in.
Yeah, they don't want people putting down the controller.
Yeah.
And my experience I talked about last week when I was playing this game is I play it for about 5-6 hours in a row.
They do kind of have that when the boat crashes. That's kind of their hook.
But
right?
you're not
That's
even playing
hook.
that though.
I know, but that's their hook, is that part. That opening, what do you call that?
Just the cinematic.
The opening cinematic is the hook. And then with the gameplay, they start out slow, and then they go into character development, and then, right?
The first hour for me, I almost put down the controller. Not that I wasn't enjoying it, but I was kind of not hooked by the experience. But that's how I got into it after that point, because the character development after the cave sequence, I don't care for the cave sequence at the beginning of the game.
People kind of, I think...
I did hate how she climbs out. I'm sorry, I hated that so much.
What do you mean?
You know when you're pressing like L1, R1, L, like going like this?
Oh yeah, scrambling up the, yeah.
It looks so weird to me, and I was kind of like, I hope this game is not like this.
I also hated the way you awkwardly dodge during that part. Like you'll still be tapping L1.
Yeah, and then you have to like.
But she just kind of like is like, oh, I'm not gonna move.
You
just
hit like
dodge
circle or something, and she just gets out of the way.
It was weird because before that was kind of cool what they were working with the puzzles and stuff. I'm like, this looks interesting, and that I'm like, I hope there is not a single part in this game after this moment that is like that, because I do not want to do that again. There wasn't. So. With that said, we'll have the spoiler cast opinion of Mike as well. He won't really talk with us, but we'll get a soundbite of what he thought of the game, and he'll come back next week with his own opinion and rating on what he thought of Tomb Raider. But let's move on, though, to other games we've been playing. Gage, you're still playing Mass Effect, right?
Yeah, it's been a slow going. Mass Effect 1 has not aged well. I don't know if it's just my copy, but there is major frame rate issues when I'm like turning around corners and things like that. And I'm thinking of skipping it, just going right to 2.
I think that's not a terrible thing, just because the jump from 1 to 2 is a great jump. You get an appreciation of the second game a little bit more when you finish the first game, because the first game's a good game, but it is a bit of a slog at points. It's still very cool to play them all.
Not a new one.
Yeah, you get into older games like that, and you realize that age does not treat some games very well. So, not a terrible thing, but how far are you into it roughly?
Not very far at all. I'm a couple hours in.
We talked about last week. I think that you're probably at the same point, right? Or
I'm a little bit past that. I just finished some mission that was I had to go like activate some water things or something.
Okay.
I'm confused about the story a little bit of what's
going on. I don't know, and it's kind of bad.
There's Geth, and then there's other aliens that are.
It's a very involved story.
Yeah.
It's a deep universe, and they're gonna do more of it too after Mass Effect 3, but it'll be interesting what they're going to have to offer from that. But Mike, you've been playing EA Sports MMA as well?
Yep. It's a good game.
That is
If they took the mechanics from that game, yeah, it's very surprising that it was good too, because it doesn't even have the best fighters. It doesn't have UFC fighters in it. So if you know what UFC and Strikeforce is, you'll know that the UFC is like it's like the
premier
NFL or the NBA or the NHL of MMA. and they don't have it. So it's kind of like having it's like a semi-pro game.
Yeah. It's like college football.
Yeah, it's like if you had a college football game. But it's really good. I wish that UFC Undisputed had the mechanics of EA Sports MMA.
Definitely just mash them together.
That's what I wish they would do. But as what I heard, because THQ went under, right?
Yeah.
I think EA Sports bought the rights to that, so we might be able to see that later on.
Yeah, at last E3, I believe that was one of like the EA was like, and here is we're gonna have MMA with, you know, the UFC a part of it, and it was a biggish deal that they were doing that. They made that a part of their conference. They brought that up. So
yeah, so I'll probably pick up the next game or whatever.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with that, because it's a pretty big franchise to have.
It is a big franchise to have, right? Yeah.
So it'll be unique probably, and look at them.
It's a difficult thing to I would imagine it's a difficult sport game to make.
Yeah.
Because it's very intricate and awkward.
It's technical. And
it's very
You can't even draw on Fight Night either.
Yeah,
really.
It would be hard to make it a really natural looking thing. Like things like NFL and FIFA and stuff, they've had a lot of time to perfect that sort of the movements and everything of the animations and stuff. Whereas they don't have as much time, so it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, definitely, and it's something that for the next game. I mean, I played the original UFC that came out with George St. Pierre for us on the cover.
Yeah.
It was the 2009 one.
Undisputed 2009.
Yeah, that one was a really cool game, and I enjoyed playing that quite a bit. So, I mean, I didn't play the EA MMA game, but I know
the EA one did a better job of making it feel real. It was a more immersive experience than the ones done by THQ.
Yeah.
So
cool. Well, for me this week, I've been playing Tomb Raider. Finished that up. I kind of played a little bit around with just trying to get some collectible stuff, do a couple things like that, but I didn't feel extremely pushed to do it just because the game I talked about last week, that the multiplayer is such a heavy aspect to the trophies that I was just like, and the multiplayer is not at all great. Good. No. It's very just kind of like, here's generic.
Yeah, it's generic third-person multiplayer.
So I played a bit of that, but I really didn't touch it that much this week. My main focus this week was on 2 different games and 2 interesting stories. Fallout 3. I got that game maybe not 5 years ago, but about 4.5 years ago. I got it as a Christmas present, 2008. And
did you get it with all the DLC? Did you get the game?
No, that was when it originally came out that year.
Oh, yeah. So you've bought it and you've had it all this time and you haven't played it?
No, wow. It didn't work that way. I was at the time, I had it in 2008, got it for Christmas at that time, and I played through like the first 3 missions, maybe a couple hours, and I think you guys both know this specific part, but when you are going to the radio station and you go underground into the subway,
you couldn't get through that.
I couldn't get through that.
That's probably my favorite part. You know how I was talking earlier about how certain games you like to play at night?
Yeah.
I love that because it kind of freaks you out with the ghouls coming out of nowhere and stuff.
Definitely. I went through that. What I'm doing now is I've gone back and I've just kind of been going around the land, the wasteland, and just trying to get my character a little bit better.
The capital wasteland.
Yeah, I essentially went straight to that part, and then I remembered, oh wait, this is the exact part that I stopped playing.
Yeah, if you don't level up a bit and explore a bit, it does get a bit difficult.
Yeah, I just found that the problem with me was that I ran out of actual bullets when I was down there, and I was like, well, I don't have any weapon that can kill these 4 ghouls running at me. I'm dead. So I'm enjoying it. The only part that I'm kind of sad about is the fact that this is an amazing game that, again, if we talk about games of this generation in the summer sometime,
it's an iconic generation game.
I think you guys are going to both represent this game very well. And I'm going to represent it in spirit, because I'm going to say I understand that this game's a really cool game, but I'm not going to have the same experience, unfortunately, because I'm looking at the game now. It still looks...
It's an aged game, too, right?
Been almost 5 years.
It looks... I'm not going to say it looks bad, because when it came out, it wasn't like a top-of-the-line graphics game when it came out anyway.
I think it was pretty high up there.
Because it was
there was some... In terms of, like, physics
it's a big landscape
and stuff, there wasn't.
Yeah.
But I think... There were some parts that really do when
You're right.
when it first came out visually.
There
impressed.
was some very unique parts to that game, and there still is. Like the whole idea of this place being so expansive, it's kind of cool to experience it all. But it sucks for me because I wish, and that's what I'm trying to do. I was talking about now is I'm trying to play new games so I just kind of know what's going on. Yeah. And this is one of those games that I regret never playing at the time, and I'm going to play it. Yeah, I'm going to play it now, and I'm going to experience it so that when people talk about this game in the future, I will not say I didn't play it. I'll play it, but it's something that I'm going to be kind of wading through. I'm not going to be going full bore into it because it's very long. Well, not extremely long. You can make it a long game though. I have the Game of the Year edition.
You can make
I plan
it long,
to,
or you can make it short.
Yeah, I plan to extend it though. I want to play. I want to experience it all.
So
The
those
DLCs
DLCs are really
good.
fun.
Yeah, they're good DLCs.
Yeah, definitely.
Usually DLC sucks, but I think Bethesda does a good job of making good DLC. So.
Yeah, and so the other game that I got as well is not a Game of the Year edition, but a complete edition. Was a game that I have a lot of love for. Not everybody does. And I wanted to play it again because I wanted to see if I was blind nostalgic for it or if I actually still really liked it. And I bought LA Noire again and I'm playing through it. And
it's a good game.
I'm really enjoying it again. And
well, it's good through the story. But it's such a big city.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to do. It's a really empty city.
That game has its flaws, and I fully admit that. I just, from my experiences,
isn't the city actually it's sized LA or whatever?
It's not. I think it's
shrunk,
but
it's a huge map though.
No, it is.
And there's nothing in it.
There's only really crime places you can go to, and there's
a couple random events and stuff.
Yeah.
Like imagine in Red Dead.
Very similar, except Red Dead had more unique events too.
Red Dead had more variety.
Yeah.
And there was other things to do too.
For me, it was funny because the faces were such an iconic part of that game when I originally played it, and I thought that maybe playing it a couple of years later, those graphics of the actual face recognition wouldn't be as strong, and it still is really unique and just kind of interesting. And the thing I'll say about it, I won't go into it that much because people know what LA Noire is. They know if they like it or not. It's a very decisive game. You either enjoyed the experience that you had with that because it was unique, or the whole aspect of that game wasn't interesting to you. So, but I'm having quite a bit of fun playing through that. So
yeah, I thought it was a good game.
Yeah,
through the story, but if you take just the story is good.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, I'm playing through it right now, and I'm at the point where I'm not too far into the game. I'm just trying to get through some of the basic missions at first and just experience it.
Are you in homicide?
I'm in I guess it's trafficking right now. I'm in the very first part. I only did a couple missions so far. But
I just think that game is not very much you have to go get clues to arrest people.
Yep.
And if you don't get enough clues, you don't get as good a score. But if you don't get a good a score, what is that? There's no punishment. It's not like if you don't collect enough clues,
they
put
get
the wrong
off or something.
Yeah, but then
they get away with the crime.
But they
don't really do that.
There's nothing really where they arrest the wrong person or
no, you can do that. There's parts where
there is a couple, but it's still scripted.
When you do the I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time.
It's hazy.
Yeah, but I think there was one interview that you have. And you have to interview 3 or 4 different people.
You could get the wrong person.
And you could pick the wrong person to be put in prison.
That's the thing that I'm doing this time around.
Until the end of the game or something.
Yeah, well, you kind of get in a feeling I maybe didn't make the right decision there. But my playthrough this time, again, something I'm not going to play thoroughly, very fast. I'm just going to... These are 2 games that I will not talk about again until I probably beat them. And they're just kind of experiences that I wanted to play, wanted to have, and I'm just gonna slowly play through them because they're both pretty long games. So, but yeah, no, I'm enjoying the experience, and for this time around, my other goal too is I'm gonna get all the clues. I'm gonna try and do it as perfect as possible without using any, looking online or stuff like that. I'm just gonna try and really see if I can read the faces, because that was one of the things that I had trouble with when I played the game the first time. Is that
reading the faces.
Sometimes the faces were kind of am I supposed to doubt him or is he telling the truth? I want to have all the clues so that I feel like he's lying, try and see if I can really ace it from that perspective. But yeah, I got one more game I've been playing this week, and this game came out last week. It's actually getting a lot of interesting praise for what it is, And I pulled it up on the screen here because I couldn't actually say the name specifically. It's called Bit Trip Presents Runner 2 Future Legend of the Rhythm Alien. And yeah, so I was like, trying to remember. That's why I was saying to you guys, hold on one second. This game is a really interesting game. It's an arcade game, you could say. It's a game you can get on Steam, you can play it on XBLA, and you can play it on PSN. Also, I think the Wii U shop, you can play it on there as well. But it's a runner game, which means that you don't even control your character. He's just continually running. And there's things you have to duck, dodge, and try and get out of the way of. And the game is actually really unique because it starts building up these things you have to do. And it becomes this insane puzzle that you have to figure out. The first game supposedly was extremely hard. I'm only in the first world of this one right now. But I'm having a lot of fun playing it because it's kind of unique. It's something that you've seen before, but it's unique and it looks really nice. And if you guys are looking for something that's simple but yet fun, this is definitely something you should check out because it has really great art design. The actual level design is really cool as well. And to get every single, like, there's these gold bricks in the level that you're trying to get, and to actually ace these levels is extremely hard, which I kind of like to do stuff like that sometimes. I'm trying to get through these levels and I'm just playing it again and again, trying to get through these simple parts where you're like just essentially going like square, circle, R2, you know, down, up, and like it gets to the point where once you learn all these techniques, you have to mash them together to like this strange, crazy combo where you're ducking, you're dodging, you're punching, you're, you know, getting through these certain parts. I'll show you guys after this as well. It's kind of neat, and again, it's not too expensive, and right now it's kind of a fun little game to play on the side too.
I've played a couple games similar, like runner games.
Yeah.
And they're usually pretty entertaining. You can't really get a lot out of them, and they're usually cheap, but they're good to like waste time with.
Fair enough. All right, I think that's it for this week, though, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and as I said before, the Tomb Raider spoiler cast will be up soon, but we are on iTunes as well, so if you want to leave comments in the YouTube sections, you can, but also you can also download us from iTunes. You can look us up at Checkpoint Achieved, and you can also look us up online too at checkpointachieved.com, where we'll have articles up for each of these episodes, and also possibly in the future we're going to be posting some articles on there too. So spreading it out a little bit, but yeah, if you want to send in questions to the show, you can do it through the YouTube channel, or you can send us a question at checkpointachieved@gmail.com, and we'll get back to answering you at the end of the show as well. But for this episode, I'm Bryden Keks.
Gage Paul.
Mike Leahy.
And that is it. Thanks, guys, for watching.
Peace.